Am I back?
Oh, hey, okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep. All right. Well, I'm set. I don't know what that was.
Okay.
Grant, are you ready? Nira, are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. Do you guys want me to get started?
Yeah, sure. Hold on, you cut out
Oh,
there.
this is live. This is live now. So, do you want me to start it up?
Yeah.
Welcome, guys. It is the playoffs for the Armchair Express podcast. My name is Daniel Neer. I am your host. So we're gonna jump right in. I'm gonna introduce our writers, our cast for this podcast. First off, we have William.
Hey guys, I'm back again. I'm here. I'm a Patriots writer, and the Patriots aren't playing today, but I'll be giving my 2 cents on stuff that's going on.
Of course. Next up, we have Matt.
Hey, what's up, guys? Matt Martinez here, writer for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Joining us for the very first time on the Armchair Express podcast, we have Grant.
Hey guys, Grant here to cover the Oakland Raiders and hopefully not break my leg like my starting quarterback.
Next up, we have Kaylor.
Hey guys, I'm a writer for the Chicago Bears, and I'll be talking a little bit about the NFC North since the Bears didn't make playoffs, if you can believe it.
So normally for our game picks, we usually just have the writer for that team kind of just give an introduction. However, since it is a playoffs, we're going to go ahead and just jump in with everyone. So first off, we're going to go with the Raiders versus the Texans. However, we do have a Raiders writer, so he can start that off. Grant?
The Raiders-Texans is rather infamously looking like it's going to be a very bad playoff game. You've got Brock Osweiler going up against Connor Cook. Neither of them are necessarily franchise quarterbacks. I think we all know that, and that's putting it lightly. The Texans do have a great defense, but Oakland has that manhandling offensive line. That offensive line does have injuries, though. Clutch Assembly's been battling injuries the last month of the season. Donald Penn looks like he might not play right now. I'm going to have to give the edge to Houston on this one. I don't think ever since Cars went down, Oakland's offense has been absolutely anemic, and the defense is below average. So I expect Houston to win this game, probably by about a touchdown. I would say it's going to be low scoring, maybe like a 17-10, 20-13 type of game.
I'm going to go ahead and agree with you to a degree that it's going to be a low-scoring game. I don't know who to pick for this game. I voted for the Texans in the pick'em, but honestly, I don't trust Brock Osweiler as far as I can throw him, and that's not very far. It's going to be. I chose Texans just because he has just that much more experience, but I don't know. It's tragic that we lost Derek Carr and that team now down to the 5th seed, I believe. The Raiders are the 5th seed, and that their goal is their playoff hopes for the most part.
Yeah, I agree. Does this just seem like a awful situation for the Raiders? I mean, to me, everybody's been waiting for the Raiders to be good. I mean, I'm not anywhere near Oakland, but it's really cool for me to see Derek Carr do what he's done in Oakland, and to see them as a dog against the Texans, it just breaks my heart. I had such high hopes for them.
I agree. It's maybe hopefully we'll see the Raiders again next year. I'm gonna give the edge to the Texans just because Brock, as bad as he's been, he has just that much more experience. So that's my choice for that game. Next up, we have the Dolphins going up against the Steelers for another wild card round, and we do have our Steelers right.
Yeah, this is a rematch of Week 6, back when Pittsburgh got dominated by the Dolphins, 30-16. I'm expecting a completely different game, mostly because the Steelers' defense is completely different from. Namely, Sean Davis, their rookie safety, he didn't play at all. He was transitioning from nickel cornerback to a true strong safety, and so he didn't play at all. He will be playing this game. The Steelers were also missing Ryan Shazier. It was their first game since the injury to defensive end Cam Hayward. Javon Hargrave's been getting a lot more snaps. James Harrison wasn't starting, and Artie Burns, their rookie first-round pick, really become a physical presence. Well, he hasn't become that physical than when he was kind of on that outside contain, kind of in the run game.
Hey Matt, we seem to be
becoming more physical.
You seem to be cutting in a little bit. So I'm gonna go for the sake of you cutting out. I'm gonna go ahead and say Steelers take this game, and I mean, like you were saying, this is a very different matchup from what it was back when the Dolphins and the Steelers originally met. And the Steelers were not prepared for that game, and they were not prepared for the run game that the Dolphins came up with out of nowhere. So this time around, especially without Tannehill in the center, you got Matt Moore, who last week against the Patriots didn't do well at all. It was just not a good game. He couldn't get anything going in the air, nothing on the ground. I see something similar happening again with the Steelers. They're going to try and rely on Jay Ajayi, but he's not. If that's their only focus, then the Steelers, as bad as their run defense is going to try and find a way to cut that down. So I'm going to give the edge to the Steelers on this.
Yeah, I would also, simply because of, the Steelers have a good offense. I mean, I haven't watched too much of them, and I know that, as Matt said, the Dolphins did beat the Steelers earlier on, but the Steelers' defense seemed to have gained an edge a little bit over the course of the season, and I just can't see the Dolphins pulling it out this time around.
Yeah, I agree. It's what happened the first time they met that will not happen again. And Ryan Shazier didn't play that game, I believe, and neither did safety Sean Davis. So it's a very different game this time around. So, like I said, edge goes to the Steelers, in my opinion. And anyone else have anything to say about that, or am I moving on to our next game?
Looks like we're moving on to the NFC.
All right, moving over to the NFC side of things, we have the Lions going up against the Packers, and we don't have a writer for either of these teams, so I guess I'll go off and
It's the Lions and the Seahawks, just by the by.
Oh, my bad. I messed up that. Lions Seahawks. We don't have a writer for this one, so I'll start it off. And Seahawks have been looking shaky here and there. I honestly, after half of the season goes by, that the Seahawks usually turn into a playoff team, but I don't really see them doing that this year. They're in the playoffs, but they're not a good team. I'm not scared of them. They had their biggest win came against the Patriots this season, and the Patriots defense was awful in that game. And after that, they reverted to nothing, and then they lost horribly to the Buccaneers, who I didn't watch that game. I saw some highlights, and they were just awful. From what I saw, it was just awful.
Yeah, they've been up and down all year, it seems. Like, they looked really good when they played the Patriots back a few months ago, but then against the Packers a few weeks, they got blown out, and just like it's been up and down. But I mean, Matt Stafford's had a really good year. I know he injured his finger and didn't really do so well last week against
Packers.
the Packers? Sorry, yeah, the Packers and the Cowboys the week before that. But this one I don't really know enough about the NFC teams to really make a solid prediction, but it will be an interesting battle to see, at least between Stafford and the Seahawks defense.
I think a really big thing to talk about here is the fact that Earl Thomas is not going to be playing this game, from what I've understood, unless I missed something. Losing him is like losing the key to that entire Seahawks defense. And with Matt Stafford playing the way he's been playing on a MVP, Pro Bowl, All-Pro level, probably won't win MVP, obviously, but he's been playing phenomenal this year. And I think that losing Earl Thomas is going to be a big blow. The other thing that's worth noting is that the Seahawks have one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. They spend less money on their offensive line than anybody else, and they get less production out of that offensive line than anyone else. When I lost Marshawn Lynch, they just have not had the same running game ever since. I think I saw a stat that said Thomas Rawls in his last couple of games has 57 yards on 39 rushes, if I remember that correctly. And that's absolutely atrocious.
That is awful.
So I would have to give the edge, even though they're playing in Seattle, I'm actually going to give the edge to the Lions in this game, even though Ziggy Ansah for Detroit hasn't been putting out great production. I still think they have the athletes and the talent on that defensive line to cause a lot of problems. And I think Detroit's going to pull this one out.
Yeah, I agree. I think what it comes down to is what I think Will mentioned about Matthew Stafford's finger, how that finger is feeling, and because of that, he performed poorly against the Cowboys and against the Packers. So I think it comes down to that. I don't see the Seahawks making it far in the playoffs. As it is mentally, like in my mind, I think they squeaked in. I know they. I know they did. I mean, they're in the playoffs. That has to count for something. The Seahawks, they've been in the playoffs for the past 4 years now, 5 years more. But I don't see them doing anything this year. And halfway through the season when they beat the Patriots, I would have been scared. I would have been saying the Seahawks are going to the Super Bowl. I don't see that anymore. That's not the team I see on the field.
I kind of agree with Grant on the Seahawks not looking so good and the Lions are looking good, but just a couple of things on the Lions that may be a little bit of smoke and mirrors. They went on this whole 8 out of 9 game win streak or whatever you want to call it. Looking down those wins, you got Eagles, Rams, Redskins, Texans. The Texans actually were the one loss. So then you've got Vikings, Jags, Vikings, Saints, Bears. There's like 1.5 real teams in there. I mean, I know like winning that many games in the NFL is difficult, but they kind of hit the Giants and the Cowboys and the Packers at the end, and those are legitimate losses. But their wins this season don't really stick out to me. I know Stafford's been playing really well, even hurt, but they play indoors, and Seattle is like the opposite of indoors. So I don't give too much to the Lions in this one, to be honest.
I can see your point, but that Grant also made a great point about the Seattle Seahawks offensive line and the lack of their production. Russell Wilson has a great ability to scramble and get things going on, like get the play going, like a broken play and going for a big gain and extending plays. But how long can you do that before you are just exhausted?
Yeah, no, I agree. And there might be 2 quarterbacks that are having trouble in a low-scoring game in this one, just because Seattle's got a really good defense, and Stafford with his injury, we'll have to see how productive he can be in heavy wind and rain.
Yeah, I think another thing worth noting is that this game's actually in Seattle, so that's going to be really difficult for Detroit to go in there and win a game. I don't even know the last time Detroit won a road playoff game. I'd imagine it's quite some time. So, but nonetheless, I think that Detroit has some players in the secondary. Darius Slay and Glover Quinn are both really good players in the secondary. I see your point about Detroit playing a weak schedule and getting all their wins out of that. But Seattle lately has just not looked like a very good team, and I cannot stress how bad that offensive line is. I mean, they took a guy, Jamarcus Webb, in free agency this year from Oakland, who was a swing tackle, and tried starting him. I mean, and that's just one example. They just do not have any consistency and really much talent on that line at all.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something as a Patriots fan. Last year, the offensive line was similar. That's what the offensive line tried doing, throwing a whole bunch of combinations. I think it was NFL high 39 combinations on offensive line, and it somewhat worked during the season, and then come the playoffs, and it was the downfall of this team, of the Patriots team. So it's not going to work in the playoffs. Maybe they'll get by the Lions, come up against a team with a good pass rush, and they're going down.
Yeah, don't see them lasting too long at all.
Yeah. All right, so our last and final playoff game this week, we have Giants going against the Packers. And the first thing I'm going to say is, Aaron Rodgers, please, 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 do not let the Giants win. This is I don't want to see them. This would be the third time. If they sneak in through a wild card slot again, they're going all the way.
I get the impression that the team that wins this game Sunday, right? Yeah.
Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday. I feel like the team that wins this game will be going to the Super Bowl for the NFC. I don't know why. I think the Giants, their defense has been really good this season, and their offense has struggled at points. But if they can, I think that they might hit their stride soon if they can, outlast the Packers and Aaron Rodgers and his, phenomenal stretch he's been on. I think that, that will be enough, sell me on them making it to the Super Bowl. As for the Packers, I just think that, they've definitely hit their stride. Ty Montgomery's been doing much better now on the ground. Aaron Rodgers is carrying the team like he has been for the past few years, and it just seems like this might be the best game this weekend. Probably will be.
Yeah, I think this is a game to watch because for the AFC, the only team worth to watch out of the wild card games is I think the Steelers, because I think the Steelers are the only team there that have a legitimate chance. On the other hand, Seahawks, Lions, I don't think either of those teams scare me. Packers, Giants, I agree with you. That'll be the game to watch. One of those teams has a chance to go all the way. And as a Patriots fan, I am praying that it is not the Giants. I'd rather see any other team in the Super Bowl than the Giants, just because you don't know what kind of Eli Manning you're getting. You don't know if you're getting 3 touchdowns or 3 interceptions. It's one of the two.
One thing I think is very important in this game, since week 6 in the NFL season, the Giants had the number 1 ranked defense. They're 2nd in sacks and they're 3rd in picks. It would be absolutely crazy for anyone to pick against them. So, of course, I'm picking the Packers. The Packers have 2 great offensive tackles, Brian Balog on the right side and David Bakhtiari on the left side. Bakhtiari is playing at a legitimate all-pro level this year. He might actually win all-pro over guys like Tyron Smith, Trent Williams, and Joe Thomas, which is absolutely incredible. Aaron Rodgers is the man. Even though he started really slow, he still managed to get 40-something touchdowns and throw like 7 picks. He's still a stud. Jordy Nelson's still at the NFL in touchdowns. And I trust Green Bay's defense more than I trust New York's offense, because I do not ever, ever, ever trust Eli Manning. And I think that if you can just slow Odell down and not give him any big plays, this Giants team is a very beatable team. I do like the emergence of rookie Paul Perkins at running back. He's been a stud the last 4 weeks. He's been great. For those of you that don't know, I do some NFL draft stuff. He was my number 1 sleeper this year, so that was some great confirmation there. But I still think that if you give me a playoff setting, I will take Aaron Rodgers over Eli Manning, even though the Giants' defense has been absolutely incredible.
For me, it's more of I'm picking the Packers more as a prayer and a hope.
Nero, one thing about that stat that got brought up about, or not a stat, but just about how Aaron Rodgers' offensive line is fantastic. The stat that I was just thinking of is how his time to throw from the time the ball is snapped to the time he either releases it or gets overwhelmed by pressure or whatever, it's the highest in the league, I believe. And one of the great things, if you watch the Packers, are so much fun to watch, is Aaron Rodgers has an uncanny sense of when the pressure is getting to him. He can stand in the pocket for 3, 4, 5 seconds, and if nobody's getting to him, his eyes are staring downfield, and he's looking for receivers. And he doesn't have really a favorite target. He'll throw it to anybody. So it's amazing to watch him. If they bring a blitz and pressure does get to him, his mobility now that he's healthy is unbelievable. So yeah, it's definitely a lot easier to trust a guy like that than Eli Manning for sure.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. So 2 fun facts about the Packers-Giants game. First off, Eli Manning versus Aaron Rodgers will be the first wild card matchup in NFL postseason history between 2 former Super Bowl MVP quarterbacks. So that's one fun fact. Yes, and then the second fun fact, I believe it was the Packers have lost to the Giants in their last 3 postseason meetups, something like that. So the Packers have a history of losing to the Giants. And
Beat them in the regular season.
Yeah, even in the regular season.
And Matt isn't here right now because of technical difficulties, but he just wants everybody to know that he also believes the Packers are going to win.
Okay. So I think that'll wrap up our game picks. Extended a little longer than usual, but it is the playoffs. So next on, we're going to go to our discussion topics. And the first thing, I feel like we've talked about it for the past 2 or 3 weeks now, but the coach firings. And I guess it's said every year that there feels like there's so many coach firings, but to me personally, it feels like there's so many more this year. And let's I mean, just today, how many coaches were fired? And not just head coaches. It was like the Redskins got rid of their entire defensive staff.
That's got rid of a lot of people, a lot of assistants.
Yeah, like
The
let me
Saints
see.
get rid of several assistants as well.
Yep. All right, let's see who else. Gary Kubiak announced that he's going to retire. Who else was fired? Who else has been moved? Obviously, Mike McCoy.
Gus
We already
Bradley.
went over Gus Bradley. Yeah, I was going to say we already went over Gus Bradley. We've already gone over Rex Ryan. We've already gone over those other coaches. But just today itself, so many coaches have been moved. So many coaches have been fired. It's kind of ridiculous. So is it just me seeing that there have been so many more this year, or is this really just like a yearly thing?
Yeah, I do think that every year it does seem like there's a lot of movement. I actually, to be honest, this year I felt like, although up until today, of course, there was a lot of stuff going on today, but I felt like up until now, there hadn't been as much this year as in the past. Now a lot happened today that kind of changed that, but yeah, I do think it's a yearly thing.
I think, let's say, I'm going to use the example of the 49ers firing head coach Chip Kelly, and they're also firing their GM, I believe. But so they're firing Chip Kelly. He's been there for 1 year. 1 year, you can't expect a team to turn around in 1 year, especially a team like the 49ers, which has a god-awful roster. I believe it's I don't have a stat to back this up, but I believe I heard it being the worst NFL roster. Maybe that's just an opinion, but you can't expect.
It's an opinion, but you would certainly have to compare them with the Browns and the Colts if you don't count Andrew Luck as three of the worst rosters in the NFL.
Yeah.
I would say, though, even the Browns have more talent than the 49ers, at least on paper. Right?
It's just, yeah.
The 49ers don't have any playmakers like Terrell Pryor or,
even Isaiah Crowell
or Gary Bryant,
Joe Thomas, Joe Hayden.
Right, but the Niners have some pieces in their front seven that the Browns don't have. Guys like Arik Armstead and DeForest Buckner.
Yeah, it's just my point here is you can't give a coach a year and expect him to bring you to the postseason. It doesn't work that way. And not to mention, the 49ers just don't have a good quarterback. They have Colin Kaepernick and Blaine Gabbert. That's not going to take you very far, especially Kaepernick seems to regress yearly. And in the words of Matt Martinez, even though he's not here, the 49ers are a dumpster fire. They're awful, and that's not going to change in a year.
Yeah, especially considering oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying especially not in a year. Go ahead.
Okay, Tom Sula, I know, was their coach last year for a year and then was fired. And now Chip Kelly was here for a year, fired. And it's just, a lot of the coaches now are going to be wary of going there if, they have a track record of just having coached there for 1 year and not giving them much talent to work with and then firing them. I mean, because
the key firing here is not even Chip Kelly. The key firing here is the GM Trent Baalke. Trent Baalke was, in my personal opinion, one of the worst talent evaluators in the NFL. He tried to take credit for the 49ers team that he inherited that went to 3 straight NFC title games. He then drafted very poorly. He had some misfortune with players retiring early, like Chris Borland, or leaving because of concussion. And he has made some very questionable moves as GM. Just last year in the draft, he traded the 7th pick in the second round and moved up about 10 spots. He gave up a 2nd-round pick, a 4th-round pick, and a 6th-round pick to move up 10 spots and way overdrafted a player that was much lower on everyone's boards and hasn't really helped out for them this year. Getting rid of Baalke was the key move. The guy that runs the Niners, Jed York, he did not want to get rid of Baalke. He really liked him. They were pretty close. But he basically has now decided we're going to scrap everything and start over and see if these picks that we've been able to get because we're so bad can help us rebuild our team.
Go ahead, Will. Go ahead.
Oh, so in the position they're in, I mean, I bet they're going to draft a quarterback this year. They have the 2nd overall pick, but as Grant can attest to, I'm not sure if they'll be able to hit on anyone as a franchise quarterback going forward.
It's going to be hard, and for his first few years in the league, it looked like they had that in Colin Kaepernick. I mean, they went to a Super Bowl. They did awful in the Super Bowl, but they got there. It's just that team, if any team needs to hit the reset button, there's a few teams in the league. The 49ers are one. and it starts with the upper management. And so I agree that with what Grant said, that getting rid of Balky was the key. I don't think necessarily getting rid of Chip Kelly was the key. And as was being said earlier, a lot of teams are going to be wary about, a lot of head coaches, are going to be wary about going there now, because they'll believe that if they can't produce within a year, they're gone. So what kind of job security is that? No one wants that.
Right, but I think that coaches are now looking at it like, oh, they were willing to get rid of Trent Baalke. Clearly, York is starting to get some reason behind him and say, okay, we're going to try and find the right people to work together and lead our organization to greatness. Now, can they do that? I don't know. You referenced getting a quarterback with the second pick. There's really not a slam dunk quarterback in this draft. There's several guys, Josh Allen, Deshaun Kaiser, Mitch Trubisky, who everybody likes, even Deshaun Watson, that are good quarterbacks, look like they could potentially be starters in the NFL, but certainly are not right now and don't look to be the slam dunk picks that we've seen, like the Andrew Lucks, like the Wentzes, like the guys like that everyone really liked. There's no one that's like that in this draft. So you might try and get yourself a quarterback in free agency. You could try to go for Romo. I don't think that'd make any sense with a hyperinflated contract and his age. You could maybe try and get a guy like Tyrod Taylor. But at the same time, this is going to be minimum 2 or 3 year rebuild before they have the talent and the ability to compete with teams in the NFC West.
Okay, so then I have a question for you. Like you said, you were talking about going after one in the free agency or possibly or something as such, and not drafting one just because you said you don't think there's sufficient talent in this year's QB draft, right?
Well, there's no one I think with the second pick in the second round, they might be able to get somebody they like a Josh Allen, or I think even Deshaun Watson might fall that far. I know everybody loves him because of what he did in college, but he doesn't have the same NFL tools that other guys have.
So what about trading another team, let's say, and maybe this is biased in my opinion, but would you go after, if you are the 49ers, do you go after Jimmy Garoppolo?
Well, the thing is, New England has stated they want a first-round pick and a fourth-round pick for Garoppolo. San Francisco is not going to give up the number 2 pick in the draft for Jimmy Garoppolo. That's not going to happen. Will they trade a first-rounder next year, or maybe a 2 and a 4, or try to work with New England? That's a possibility. I still think you're getting a guy that's played, 2 games in his NFL career and the perfect system for a young quarterback to play in and look good. So I don't think they would bite on that. I did see a trade today, however, with potentially Buffalo, and it was one-sided towards Buffalo, where they would flip picks. So San Francisco would pick up the 10th pick. Buffalo would get the second pick. San Francisco would get Tyrod Taylor and some other things from the Bills to make that a little more even. And I think that's something that's very interesting. I do not see the San Francisco 49ers trading the second pick in the draft, though, to answer your question.
So see, I can understand that, but what if there's a swap involved where not only are you getting Jimmy Garoppolo, but you're getting Josh McDaniels? So you have yourself a coach. He wants to bring Garoppolo with him. So now you have yourself a QB, and you can build talent around him.
That would be interesting to be able to get the coach that they might want in a trade, which everyone forgets that you're allowed to do with coaches, including myself. I don't think they would go that route. I don't see, as much as New England getting the second pick would be absolutely ridiculous. I don't see it happening. So I don't think they're going to get Garoppolo. I think a team that would like to get Garoppolo would be a team maybe in the middle of the first, certainly no. I don't see a team giving up a top 10 pick for Jimmy Garoppolo. I just don't see it happening. I don't think he's not a proven talent in the NFL, and I think teams know that.
See, a lot of people, especially Patriots fans, seems to forget that he played out of his mind. Don't get me wrong, he played out of his mind for 1.5 games. He played out of his mind for six, 7 quarters, 9 quarters, something like that. 6 quarters.
I can understand the guy looked good whenever he played, but keep in mind, Matt Castle won 12 games as a quarterback in New England. So whenever I see a backup to Brady step in and play well right off the bat, that doesn't convince me that person's going to be a long-term starter in the NFL.
I see Jimmy Garoppolo as a better player than Matt Castle. And going back to what you were saying about the first and the fourth round draft pick, the Sam Bradford treatment, that was a report by Adam Schefter saying that that's what the Patriots were looking for. Then, of course, the almighty great Trent Dilfer said that was wrong. I wouldn't listen to Trent Dilfer. But at the very least, I do believe the Patriots are looking at, if they trade Garoppolo, a first-round pick. Maybe not, like you said, maybe not a top 10 pick, but a first-round pick. Maybe not a first and a fourth, maybe a first and a fifth, maybe first and a sixth, maybe some other combination. But I do see a potential first-rounder.
I just don't see a team that's got that first-round pick that would be willing to give up because most of the teams that need quarterbacks, look at the Jets, the Bears, the Niners, they're all really high in the draft. And I certainly wouldn't give up a top 5 pick for Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that's absolutely ludicrous. But, I mean, these GMs are paid to do that sort of thing, and I'm not.
So this is a little off of a topic question, but how come, and this is to anyone who wants to answer this, how come a team is willing to spend a first round pick, like a 1 or a 2, number 2 pick on a quarterback coming out of college, but they won't trade it to a player that's already in the NFL with some NFL experience?
Well, for going just for Jimmy, he only has 1 year left on his contract.
See, that's one of the big things that has come up.
You have a if you draft a quarterback, you have him for basically 5 years on a. If you draft him in the first round, you have him the 5th-year option. So basically 5 years for pretty cheap, and so basically what you'd be trading is an early draft pick for a 1 year rental. And back just going to Jimmy in general, I don't think the Patriots are willing to trade him in the first place, and that's really why the asking price is so high.
Yeah,
I think if someone does offer a top 10 pick, then we'll take it. But I really basically think that's sort of, we're taking offers, but we're not looking to move him unless you make an offer we can't refuse, essentially.
Yeah, and I agree with that. He's not moving unless you make that 1st and a 4th round pick. And speaking of quarterbacks that might be being moved or going somewhere else, we had our Twitter poll this week was, where is Tony Romo landing? And with a whopping 58%, our viewers chose the Broncos. That's his next destination, that the Broncos will seek him out. What do you guys think about that? What do you guys think?
Oh, sorry. As we all know, Gary Kubiak retired.
Yeah.
And I just don't know. We know the Broncos were sort of on edge at the end of the season. We saw them sort of get chippy with the Patriots at the end of their game a few weeks ago, and I just don't know if they'll be able to hold it together. Yeah. It didn't look as complete a team without Peyton Manning, even though his arm was terrible. But it just seemed like they were they weren't really a team by the end of the season, and I'm not sure. And rumors are Wade Phillips may also be gone, and I just don't know if they'll completely fall apart without a leader.
Yeah, that's the thing. It might be at that point is the lack of leadership, because regardless of Peyton Manning's arm strength and how he was playing, he's still a leader. He was still mentally in charge of that team. So our other teams on the on our poll was the Browns with 13%, the Bears with 12%, the Texans with 17%. Obviously, the Texans can't take him. I mean, I guess they technically could if they work around their cap space and they move things around, but the Texans have Brock Osweiler eating their cap space up. And they can't pay 2 quarterbacks starting money.
Yeah, Romo's cap.
They certainly can if they want to extend some of the guys on their roster, like A.J. Boye, who's been a phenomenal cornerback, but whose his contract runs out. Right now they have $4 million in room. If you count the guys that are going to leave and that they'll probably cut, they might get up into the 20s or even the low 30s in cap space. But they still have to account for draft picks. They still have to account for guys that want to re-sign in the offseason. So I don't think it's feasible whatsoever that they on Romo's contract.
Yeah. So I made a quick list. We only had 4 teams on the Twitter poll, but I made a quick list of teams that I believe are in need of a quarterback and could potentially seek out Romo this offseason. So I wrote down the Jets, Texans, Browns, Broncos, Bears, Bills, 49ers, and potentially Cardinals, Dolphins, and Jaguars. And out of those, Richard Cano isn't here with us today, but he is our resident Cowboys writer, and he believes that Romo will only go to a team that has a good offensive line and a warm weather team. So what does that really lead you?
If they're going to trade Romo, he doesn't have much of a say, so I think we need to put that out there first.
I agree.
The team that makes the most sense of the teams you just listed to me is the New York Jets, because they've got their young quarterbacks in Hackenberg and Petty if they want to let them still learn how to play quarterback or whatever. But if Romo doesn't have an option if he's getting traded, unless they're trying to restructure his contract, I think that's very important to point out.
Well, you got to think of what team he's on, Grant. He plays for the Dallas Cowboys. The owner is Jerry Jones. Tony Romo and Jerry Jones are very good friends. I get the sense that Jerry Jones isn't going to send Tony Romo to a place that he really doesn't want to go. I get the good weather thing, but that doesn't seem as big of a factor to me as the offensive line thing. I just think Jerry Jones has enough of a heart to not send Tony Romo to somewhere like the Browns, where he's going to get his career ended again in the first quarter of the first game he plays.
Yeah. To me, like if there was no other mitigating circumstances, I think the go-to team would be the Texans, just because you already have a good defense there. You have a decent offensive line, and that the AFC South is up for grabs every year because that division is just awful. So the Texans, in my opinion, would make the most sense, but because of Brock Osweiler and their cap space issues, it just doesn't seem possible.
Yeah, Romo's cap hit next year is $25 million. So that's, unless someone agrees to restructure his contract, that's an awful lot of money for someone that you don't even know if he's going to be healthy. And for, and that's a lot of money for teams that need a quarterback. Like the Jets, for example, are only projected to have $2 million in cap space going into next year. As Grant said, the Texans will probably only have around 20 to 30 million. And, the Broncos don't have that much either. So it's like, that's a huge chunk, especially if you're already paying a quarterback like the Texans are.
Yeah. So what, if you guys had to pick one team, give me a team, someone, where he's going.
Jets. The Jets are the only team that makes sense to me because every other team is looking to draft a quarterback, not bring on an older guy, or they can't have a quarterback like Houston. The only team that would make sense for a veteran quarterback to go to would be the Jets. So that's the only one I could see him going to.
Mine, I would agree, the Jets. I would say the Broncos just because I believe you take Romo on a win-now team. That being said, with Gary Kubiak stepping down, it kind of changes things up a bit. If you get a good
offensive line as well.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
A lot of these teams that you mentioned have bad offensive lines. 49ers, Browns, Broncos had poor offensive line play all year. So,
but that being said, if the Broncos go for Romo, they have everything else there. They have their defense. They sort of lack a run game, but Romo can make up for that. So what you do is you build an offensive line around him. Everything in the draft, you're going for offensive line and you're going for a running back.
Yeah, it's just there's so many factors going on with Romo in addition to his cap hit, his injury, and the fact that he's sort of older that I don't know if it's like a very almost delicate situation where I don't know if many teams are going to be wanting to take him on.
Yeah.
Actually.
There's a very real possibility that he doesn't get moved and he stays in Dallas.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, the thing is that Dallas can't really release him either because his dead cap hit is huge too.
Yeah.
So.
And if no team wants to fight on him,
can't move him. Yep.
I think I think it's going to come down to whether or not he wants to restructure his monster contract.
Basically, yeah. I mean, at the very least, though, Dallas will have the best backup quarterback in the league.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at least that's some insurance for Dak Prescott in case anything ever happens to him.
Yeah.
So next up, our next discussion topic is a whole bunch of player awards. So let's start off with MVP. We've already touched upon this a brief bit in other podcasts, but I see the top 3 candidates of MVP that keep reoccurring are Brady, Ryan, Rodgers. And
it seems like it's always a quarterback, and I don't know if that should necessarily be the case. And the thing with MVP is, in my opinion, it's hard to define what MVP actually is because it's voted on by the Associated Press, and sort of what it comes down to is the quarterback on a team that did better than originally was expected, or or like in Aaron Rodgers' case, turned around and did a good job. Like last year was Cam Newton, and yes, he had a good season, but it just seems like it's the quarterback of whatever team happened to be on fire for most of the year.
Yeah, it's usually the quarterback. I mean, other players have won it, like other position players, but it's because usually a team depends so heavily on a quarterback that quarterbacks are usually the ones in the running for it. And going along with Aaron Rodgers, he has 40 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, but to me, what sticks out is the first 6 weeks, however many weeks it was, where he was just awful and that team was awful. And yes, they turned it around and they've won 7 in a row now.
Yeah, I mean, if he continues it to the playoffs, then I could see a good argument.
Yeah, I'd rather see either Matt Ryan and maybe there's a tiny bit of bias, but Tom Brady, especially doing what he's doing at 39 years old. So those are my two options. Really, it's either between Ryan or Brady.
I think one guy we're not mentioning who needs to be mentioned, and I'm sure Dallas fans are screaming for Dak and Zeke. First of all, I can't vote for Dak whenever he's at best the fifth best player on his own offense. So, I mean, that's nothing personal, but whenever you're the fifth best player in your offense, I can't vote for you for MVP.
That's fair.
Zeke, if you look at Zeke's numbers this year and you look at the Cowboys running backs last year, just yards per carry numbers, they're very similar. I understand Zeke's been great. I'm not saying he's been anything average at all. I think he's already in the top tier of running backs. I think the main guy we're leaving out here is David Johnson, because David Johnson is going to, I think, have close to 2,000 total yards from scrimmage if he hadn't already passed that. He's very close to, if he hasn't already passed, 1,000 yards rushing and receiving, which has only been done by two players, Marshall Faulk and Roger Craig. So I think that we need to give him his due. I understand his team is bad, but that's really not his fault. And despite having a terrible offensive line, you're still able to put up great production. The guy I personally would vote for is Matt Ryan. I think Brady not playing those 4 games, you can say it was a terrible suspension, that it wasn't fair, and I would agree with that. But whenever Ryan actually played all 16 games, was phenomenal, took his team to the 2 seed in the NFC playoffs. You can say he is Julio at wide receiver. That's very true. Brady's had Gronk, maybe not this year, but in years past. So I don't penalize him for having Julio. I would vote for Matt Ryan. I think he's had the best season. I think if Derek Carr hadn't gotten injured first with his finger and then by breaking his leg, he would be in contention. I think Aaron Rodgers has been too up and down, having the bad stretch to start off and then finishing so strong for me to give him the MVP. And then, as I said, the Dallas guys I can't give the MVP to whenever the MVP is their offensive line. So
I'm going to tell you why. Sorry, before you continue, I'm going to tell you really quick why Dak or Zeke is not winning MVP. And that's because as great as they've been, they're going to split the vote with each other, and that's just going to mess everything up. So neither of those two will get it, as well as our offensive line won't. Go ahead, Will.
Yeah, honestly, though, I would probably end up nominating the Cowboys offensive line, because if we're talking about, value, their team, I know you can't actually nominate, and you can't really, quantify what a offensive line does, but that's sort of I'd say they've been, significantly helping Zeke and Dak and easing them in, and it just seems but obviously an offensive line isn't going to get nominated anytime soon. Other than that, if we're going with who's probably going to get it, it would probably be Matt Ryan, similar to Cam Newton last year, had a great season, good all throughout, did better than expected. It just seems like that's probably the way it'll go.
So, Grant, let me run something by you. You've got Dak and Zeke in Dallas with a great supporting cast, wide receivers, offensive line, of course, all kinds of talent. You've got Matt Ryan in Atlanta with a lot of talent around him as well, I think, with Devontae Freeman, Tevin Coleman, Julio, and not the best defense, but overall supporting cast, pretty good. Compared to a guy like Andrew Luck, an awful offensive line, really almost an awful everything. But, Andrew Luck to me is still a really, really good quarterback, and on the right team, he's probably a Super Bowl winning quarterback someday. I'm not saying you're wrong. I guess the question I'm asking, how much do you value the supporting cast around an MVP candidate?
I mean, I do, but it just seems the voters don't necessarily.
I mean, and that kind of goes off of why David Johnson's not going to win the MVP, is because as great as he's been, everyone around him is terrible or has been playing bad. So that means that he's not going to get it. So the Cardinals aren't in the playoffs, which seems to kind of be it's a thing. If you want to be MVP, your team has to be in the playoffs.
Yeah,
so
that definitely seems to be a thing. But
yes.
There's no real good answer for that question as to why that is the case.
I think what the thing that no one's talking about is Ryan Fitzpatrick in the MVP race. And how, in all seriousness, so if there was the anti-MVP, the worst player in the league, and I'm not talking about just a player who's not that good, I'm talking about a player who has been a detriment to their team, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Anyone have anyone else?
Well, he sits in the throne.
The Giants has been the worst offensive lineman in football.
Wait, what? I'm sorry. Grant, can you repeat that?
Oh, sorry. Eric Flowers, the left tackle for the Giants, who's been one of the worst offensive linemen, if not players in football. I've seen him get beat by defensive linemen who he doesn't even touch because he's just so terrible at his job. But I do believe that the Fitztragic thing is a very good pick.
So can we name it the Fitztragic Award?
We can name it the Fitztragic Award. That's a great idea.
I think that's fitting.
Didn't Ryan Fitzpatrick inherit that award from the former Jets quarterback Mark Sanchez, though?
So should it just be the Jets Award at this point?
Yeah, it's the Jets quarterback award. I mean, my dad and I were laughing about the butt fumble the other night. Like, that's still the funniest play in the NFL history.
That's just like good, wholesome family football is what that is.
Yeah. Yeah, and just another few players I'm going to plug for MVP, even though they're not going to get it. But Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, and Andrew Luck and David Johnson, we said earlier, have been on pretty bad teams, have done really well. Drew Brees with over 5,000 passing yards. He threw the ball 673 times apparently this year, which led the league. And even though he's not going to get much credit, and he did have that weak stretch towards the end of the year, it's just it's disappointing to watch a quarterback do so well year in and year out, just for his defense to let him down and go 8-8, 7-9 over and over again.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. If we're picking a player that's not on a playoff team, either Brees or Johnson, Drew Brees or David Johnson would win it, in my opinion. All right, next up, we're going to go over some smaller awards, but let's say Defensive Player of the Year.
Okay, Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, you could always go the Von Miller, Khalil Mack route if you want. That's sort of the way out.
Defensive ends usually are big impact players, or outside linebackers, whichever one you want to call them. They're the same thing now.
Edge defenders, whatever.
Yeah. So I think easy, Khalil Mack or Von Miller. And I think it's going to come down to which one of the two has a bigger play in a crucial moment. I mean, obviously the Broncos won't anymore, but let's say if Khalil Mack does something this weekend that if he's the reason the Raiders win, I think he's taking it.
Yeah, it's just, go ahead.
One thing to note on Khalil Mack is that during the regular season, he had 3 straight games with a strip sack, forced fumble recovery. In the Carolina game, he not only did he have a strip sack that sealed the game, he also had a pick 6 in that game. Of every edge defender in the top 50 in sacks, Khalil Mack leads them in tackles for the second straight year. He is second he's in the top 5 in forced fumbles. He's in the top 5 in sacks like he is every year. Pro Football Focus had him the number 1 rated edge defender again. I think you can give this to Khalil Mack. Obviously, I'm biased as a Raider fan. Von Miller is a great choice also. The guy that we're not mentioning that everyone else has mentioned, I think it's a good pick, is Landon Collins, the safety for the Colts.
Yes.
He's been absolutely phenomenal against the pass. He's forced fumbles. He's made tackles. He's just been a great safety all around.
No, he's been
If we're talking sacks and edge defenders, we could also go Vic Beasley, who led the NFL with 15.5 sacks this year. He really sort of came out of nowhere, sort of like Collins after torching last year.
Vic Beasley is sorry about cutting in, but it's worth noting that most edge defenders, they have a stat called sacks that everyone knows, everyone understands. They have another stat called hurries, which is how many times they get into the backfield and pressure the quarterback. Yeah. Most edge defenders convert about 45% of their hurries. This season, Vic Beasley has converted 97% of his hurries. He's been a statistical anomaly. I don't think it's ever happened like this in the NFL where someone with this many sacks has had this high percentage. So I think that you can give it to him because he's been finishing those plays, but he's gotten extremely lucky compared to other edge defenders this year.
Yeah. Okay, how about this? How about Offensive Player of the Year?
Well, you could always nominate sort of the other guys that we've talked about before, right? The whole Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers, whoever doesn't get MVP.
I think
cop out.
If Matt Ryan doesn't get MVP, I definitely think Offensive Player of the Year. But if we're going to go a route separate from quarterbacks, I think this is an easy place for David Johnson to get his award, Offensive Player of the Year.
Yep, you could also do Le'Veon Bell or Ezekiel Elliott if we're talking running backs. Yeah.
I think with Ezekiel Elliott.
Missing time is going to hurt him.
Yep.
What was that?
Yeah, well.
Le'Veon Bell missing as much time as he did is going to hurt him, certainly.
Yes.
When it comes to the
he played well when he played, but the voters are probably going to hold it against him.
I think the Rookie of the Year, though, when you're talking about Ezekiel Elliott for Offensive Player, I think Rookie of the Year goes to either Ezekiel Elliott or Dak Prescott.
Yep.
And I think I think one of those two players deserve it. If they can share the award, then by all means.
One thing I like
Zeke
about
has probably been a better football player than Dak has, from my perspective. I think Dak is getting more praise because he plays quarterback and he doesn't throw a lot of picks, although he doesn't take a lot of chances, and the receivers are always open because they have to cover the run first. I would give it to Zeke. I'm interested to see what you guys have to say, though.
I
I
think
was just going to say earlier, Nira, that one thing I like about the Player of the Year versus the MVP is it almost has a little bit of I don't know what you'd call it, maybe style points or something, but kind of something that the fans would attend to more than the most valuable award, just because there's a lot of confusion in terms of like what the most valuable player award means. But Player of the Year, like it's got to be Dak or Zeke, just because they've been the most prominent. It's America's team. They've kind of really drawn the spotlight back to Dallas, and don't voters really like that?
Yeah. Okay. So then the last one we have is what is this, Defensive Rookie of the Year?
Yep.
Or
The
second
two
class.
sort of easy answers would be Jalen Ramsey and Joey Bosa, both of whom did really well. Ramsey got off to a shaky start, but he allowed a ridiculously low passer rating, I believe, at the last stretch of the year. And Joey Bosa obviously created a lot of pressure and was very dynamic for the Chargers.
Yeah, Jalen Ramsey. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I believe it was like 80, like an 80% or not percent 80 passer rating, or like
Yeah,
80,
well,
Whatever it is.
Yeah, over the
80.9.
past 4 weeks, it was 34% completion percentage and 24% passer rating. So
Yeah.
he did really well the past few weeks.
Yeah. And real quick, Coach of the Year. Adam Gase. Okay, that's actually because I was gonna say maybe I might go a little biased and say Belichick, just
I mean,
because.
you can say Belichick every year though, so it's
Yeah, I know that's why it's almost a disservice. But so besides that, yeah, Adam Gase, I think that's a great pick. He turned around the Dolphins. I mean, they're in the playoffs after doing awful last year. So Adam Gase definitely.
What do you think about
Quinn?
Del Rio too?
What was that?
Del Rio.
Del
Del Rio
yeah.
is more a product of this. You can argue Del Rio. He early in the season he showed that he had faith in his team. He went for some very gutsy 2-point conversions, specifically against New Orleans. That was, win or lose right here. I would say you can put Del Rio in there. I don't think he'll win it. I think Jason Garrett winning 13 games and Adam Gase having the recovery he had, and even Caldwell in Detroit have all had great years. And I don't think that Dan Quinn and of course have all had great years. I think Del Rio should certainly have his hat in the ring.
I think I'm gonna agree with you. I didn't think about it at first, but I see Adam Gase.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And we have Matthew Martinez saying Dan Quinn as and also
You can argue for Dan Quinn.
yeah, okay. So I know I said the last thing, but I'm just gonna throw this one out there because apparently this is a thing. It's been going on for 2 years now. Brand new award, Assistant Coach of the Year, and again Patriots bias. So this one's gonna be a little harder just because it might be harder to know assistant coaches off other teams. Head coaches are easy. Assistant coaches are a little more vague. It's a broader category, but I'm going to say Dante Scarnecchia for the Patriots because he has flipped that offensive line around completely. It was terrible last season. It is what got the Patriots eliminated. It's what let the Broncos win. And so I'm going to say Dante Scarnecchia for turning around that offensive line and bringing a run game back to New England.
Matt Martinez wanted to plug Anthony Lynn.
Sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to plug Anthony Lynn, the running back coach for the Bills that turned into the offensive coordinator that then took over as head coach after Rex Ryan was fired. And, I would say he did a great job with LeSean McCoy, Mike Gillislee, and, turning the Bills' run game into quite a formidable force. And that doesn't show on their record, but I think he did pretty well. He's going to definitely get some interviews for head coaching jobs this offseason.
Okay. And does anyone have anything else, or I'm going to wrap this up?
There's a lot of talent on Dallas's offensive line. Maybe their offensive line coach.
Rob Marinelli, who's been the defensive coordinator there, has had a great year despite not only having one really talented guy in Sean Lee.
Yeah, that's true.
That's fair. Okay, so that's going to wrap up this week podcast, the Armchair Express podcast. Again, my name is Daniel Nera. We have our cast. Going to go run through our cast once more. We have William, we have Matt Martinez, we have Grant Baker, and we have Kayla Feltman. Thank you for joining us. Go follow Armchair NFL on Twitter and follow AC All Americans, and go check out armchairallamericans.com. Thank you for joining us. Roll Armchair.
Roll Armchair.
Roll Armchair.